Hi, I'm Erik Voss, and Captain Marvel's most surprising twist is the many ways this film connects to the broader MCU, including, spoiler warning, but you really have had enough time to go see Captain Marvel by now, guys, including the Tesseract, the cosmic cube. The freaking Space Stone shows up in this movie. For anyone with more than a passing knowledge of the history of the MCU, you guys, I assume if you're watching this video, welcome home, nerds. This appearance is a serious game changer. I'm gonna explain how the Tesseract got here, and how Captain Marvel as a movie revises the Marvel timeline as we know it, and what this could mean for future films. And second, spoiler warning in case I get anything right and ruin your life. Okay, the early days of the Tesseract remain unchanged. The Space Stone was one of the 6 singularities at the dawn of the universe, the Infinity Stones. Sometime later, the Space Stone became encased inside the Tesseract cube. Odin defeated the Frost Giants in the 10th century and decided to leave the Tesseract with the Vikings of Norway. Bit of a weird move in the grand scheme of things, but there's actually a theory that I've brought up before that the reason Odin left the Space Stone on Earth could have been regret after his own Infinity Stone quest, in pursuit to conquer the 9 realms, leading him to sacrifice his daughter Hela the same way Thanos would later sacrifice his daughter Gamora. History is poetry, it rhymes. Maybe that's true, maybe not, but in Norway the Tesseract remained until Hydra, led by Red Skull, took it in 1942. He tried to weaponize it and it got whooshed through a wormhole opened up by the Space Stone, and he ended up on Vormir, where we saw him in Infinity War. The Tesseract, meanwhile, burned through the hull of the Valkyrie, and Howard Stark found it on the ocean floor. And we know Howard continued to research the Tesseract through the 60s and 70s because we saw a doodle of it show up in his notes in Iron Man 2. And we all just assumed that the Tesseract was generally in S.H.I.E.L.D.'s possession until the events of the first Avengers, but this Captain Marvel movie just proved us wrong. Dead wrong. Okay, so Captain Marvel establishes that Mar-Vell, a Kree scientist played by Annette Bening, was on Earth under the pseudonym of Dr. Wendy Lawson, working on Project Pegasus. The focus of this project was the Tesseract, with Mar-Vell using its energy to power a light-speed engine that she could use to help Skrull refugees find a new home world in a remote part of the galaxy. Mar-Vell died in 1989 when she and Carol were shot down by the Kree Star Force, so the Tesseract remained hidden in her lab, a laboratory that was invisible within Earth's orbit. This was until Carol, Nick Fury, and Goose recovered it 6 years later in 1995. Goose, of course, is a flurkin with inner mouths and tentacles, allowing him to swallow big stuff, including the Tesseract. Now, this actually clears up some lingering mysteries we've had about the MCU timeline. For example, in Captain America Winter Soldier, we learned that S.H.I.E.L.D. has actually been corrupted by Hydra throughout the 20th century. But if, over all those years, the freaking Space Stone had been in S.H.I.E.L.D.'s possession, why didn't Hydra try to do anything with it? This new timeline helps explain that. Turns out, the Tesseract was missing. No one knew where it was from 1989 to 1995. But notice how in the middle of that period, 1991, is when Hydra sent the Winter Soldier to assassinate Howard Stark. Perhaps the Tesseract's location was a secret that Howard Stark took to his grave. Like, rather than sharing information about the Tesseract to all of S.H.I.E.L.D., maybe he kept it to himself. And he only shared the Tesseract with this alien Kree woman he met, Mar-Vell. She would have showed up sometime in the late 20th century, and she could have talked to Howard Stark about using the Tesseract for peaceful purposes. These two peaceful, idealist silver foxes probably would have agreed on a lot. It makes sense that Howard Stark would let her borrow it. But how would Mar-Vell have found Howard Stark and the Tesseract to begin with? Well, Mar-Vell could have learned about the Tesseract by maybe picking up some energy signals from Earth. It seems like that's a technology some people have. Or since she was friendly with some of the Skrull, maybe there was some other Skrull spy embedded close to Howard Stark's inner circle who told her about the Tesseract. Or maybe Howard Stark himself is a Skrull. Tony Stark a Skrull. Everybody a Skrull. Who knows, but we did actually get a clue that Howard Stark and Mar-Vell had some working relationship. Remember that Tesseract hypercube doodle in Howard Stark's notes? In Captain Marvel, if you look closely at Mar-Vell's notes, she has a similar cube doodle. Now I know what you're gonna say, lots of us doodle cubes. Could just be a coincidence, but when we're talking aliens, there are no coincidences. Anyway, after Fury and Goose recover the Tesseract in Captain Marvel, notice how the Tesseract remains a secret to S.H.I.E.L.D. Fury lies to Agent Coulson about its actual location. He looks over at Goose and he says, it'll show up eventually. In the final post-credit scene of Captain Marvel, Goose coughs up the Tesseract on Fury's desk, and this can't be too long after the events of the movie in '95 because Fury still has the same office, the same CRT desktop top monitor, like he probably hasn't been promoted or hasn't been made SHIELD director just yet. But I think we can assume that Fury kept the Tesseract close to the chest throughout the 2000s. Maybe until around the moment Fury showed it to Dr. Selvig in a Thor post-credit scene. And from there, we know what happened to the Tesseract, right? Loki shows up, he wrecks Project Pegasus, he ultimately fails to take the Tesseract. Afterward, Thor takes it back to Odin's vault on Asgard, and in Ragnarok, Loki snatches it before Asgard gets destroyed, allowing Thanos to drop in at the start of Infinity War and take it from him. But Captain Marvel also fills in a lot of other blanks of the MCU timeline as we knew it from other movies, like the backstories of the Guardians of the Galaxy and the Avengers in the future of Endgame. First, we learn in the final moments of the movie that Nick Fury named his Avengers initiative after Carol Danvers, whose pilot call sign was Avenger. So all of his wisdom, his ability to motivate these Avengers, his no-nonsense candor with future Avengers like Stark and Cap and Black Widow, it all began with his experience with this pilot alien brainwashed super soldier. He's probably been chasing that high ever since. And we know Captain Marvel will join the Avengers in Endgame. And since it looks like her powers were derived from the Space Stone's energy, in addition to flight and supercharged photon blasts, she also appears to have the ability to teleport and phase shift. Like, she definitely got the jump of Black Widow there.
I am very, very sneaky, sir.
And maybe, like Scarlet Witch, whose Mind Stone-derived abilities empowered her to destroy the Mind Stone, Captain Marvel will have a similar advantage against Thanos and the Space Stone in Endgame. But then again, Thanos might be ready for her, because Ronan also plays a role in the Captain Marvel movie. He's in cahoots with Yon-Rogg, and of course later on in 2014, Ronan will split from the Kree military and join Thanos in a plot to take the Power Stone. Ronan knows about Captain Marvel, and he might also know that the Tesseract is on Earth, because that's what Yon-Rogg was after. So perhaps Thanos learned about the Space Stone's location from Ronan, and that's what kickstarted his assault on Earth with Loki in the first Avengers. And if that's true, Thanos will also probably know that some superpowered Kree Earth lady is out there somewhere. Like he knew who Tony Stark was, you gotta imagine this guy keeps a list of potential threats. Aside from Ronan, we'll have to see the other ways Captain Marvel could fill in the Guardians timeline. In my breakdown of Captain Marvel, I pointed out how the shooting star that Carol and Monica see in the late 80s could be Yondu's ship when he kidnapped Peter Quill. And in 2014, Quill mentioned hooking up with some aggressive Kree girl, and both he and Carol do have troll dolls in their possession. But here's my question for you. Are you more excited to see how Captain Marvel could tie into the future of the MCU with the Avengers, or the past of the MCU with the Guardians of the Galaxy? Comment down below with your thoughts, follow me on Twitter and Instagram at EA Voss, and subscribe to the New Rockstars on YouTube, and subscribe to our podcast wherever you get your podcasts. Thanks for watching, and whatever Nick Fury has told us about his past with SHIELD, Pegasus, and the Tesseract, remember what he taught us about trust.
Last time I trusted someone, I lost an eye.
Oh, you thought just because we learned how he lost his eye, I'd be done with this bit? Wrong.